So I had to talk about this because this is some not great news potentially. We'll find out. We'll find out how it pans out. But there's been some news about ye old Splinter Cell, that game that Ubisoft seems to forget about, or seemingly forgets about. That I'm pretty sure they once said that they were unsure about what to do with it and didn't know how to bring it back because they wanted to do it right. So, of course, they decided that, or at least leaks or a rumor suggests that they're gonna potentially not do it right by having it be open world or semi-open world or something like that. This comes from a tweet, I believe, from Tom Henderson, who is a pretty reliable source of a lot of leaks currently. He was the initial person to post about a new Splinter Cell game being in development. I think it was a few weeks ago, about a month or so ago. It came from him. He's been reliable, very, seems like a pretty good guy to follow for this kind of, for any leaks. So I believed him on this, and this tweet from him, I also think makes sense. Doesn't really get me hyped. But basically, so there's a Push Square article that kind of covers it, but his initial tweet said that Ubisoft's Splinter Cell game, it is in early development, is currently scoped as a, you guessed it, open world of sorts. There's a couple of quotes. He says, quote, a more stealthy version of Assassin's Creed, and quote, similar to how Halo Infinite has done its open world. Now, I don't fully know Halo Infinite. According to Push Square's article, they mention that it'll be obviously talking about Halo Infinite. They say they haven't played it, but they understand that there's a large open area to explore with sectioned off campaign missions alongside it. I think I think Halo has, like, it's almost like, I want to say it sounds like how Jak and Daxter 1 was, or there was another game that I recently was thinking about, and I can't remember its name, but basically you have, like, you have a main, like, hub world area that's quite big. I guess Dark Souls, Dark Souls is probably a terrible comparison, but you basically have a hub world. Obviously this is more of an open area, and then you have those missions that I guess lead off in different parts of that. I don't know enough about Halo to know how that works for Halo. I still think it's a bit of a weird idea for Halo from outward looking in. I've not played really any of the other games, so from my understanding of Halo, it seemed to be weird. But for Splinter Cell, obviously we don't know the full extent, but I think it sounds like a pretty bad choice. And it baffles me why they're doing this. Originally we heard it was going to be similar to Hitman. And Hitman, the way Hitman works is that you obviously have, like, a map, and then you kind of, it's like, this is the comparison I've come up with Splinter Cell and Hitman, and I guess and Dishonored, is that Splinter Cell has always been traditionally, I think a lot of levels have been linear, but some of them, or as the series evolved, I think Chaos Theory there was a bank level in Chaos Theory where that had multiple avenues, so they've kind of been a mix of linear and some more open levels, so it's a Hitman style could work, but you're kind of looking at more linear, but with multiple paths with Splinter Cell, and with Hitman, you're looking at a map that eventually, the idea is that you explore and you learn, you get new opportunities for assassinations and entrance points and opportunities and all that kind of thing. So the map really works for for Hitman's overall design because of the way that the game's structured. But for Splinter Cell, it doesn't make sense to me because I think it could work. I just find having more freedom in an entire level, I don't know if it would work with Splinter Cell in the same way, because Splinter Cell isn't always about assassin. It's not about always killing people. It's about infiltrating, going through behind enemy lines, and sneaking through bases and military bases, all that kind of thing. And it just doesn't seem like the right thing. But then we hear this rumor now. I'm wondering if it's similar to Halo Infinite, that if it has, like, an open area that then branches off into different areas, is that going to be multiple of those? In which case I think maybe could work, but I just find that then you're straying too close to MGS5, and I think the thing is with stealth games is that I don't think they're designed to be open world. If you're making a stealth game open world, it's no longer inherently a stealth game, because you can because it's more, because at that point you're creating an open world with stealth in it. You're not creating a stealth game kind of thing. It's not a stealth game with open world. It is an open world with stealth mechanics, because open world is obviously about there are elements of it that work. Like MGS5 has some cool moments where you can, you know, you can do reconnaissance on a base, and you're like, binoculars, and you can search, you can find the enemies, you can scout from afar about where you're heading into, and I think that does work. But at the same time, I guess you could technically do that in the old games to some degree. Uh, so I think open environments can be cool, but the stealth works quite good when you're pinned into like a set of areas, and you have to find the best way through for your playstyle, or for what you think is going to be best. And having an open world is kind of the total opposite of that, at least at times anyway. Because not all open worlds are going to give you this. You can scout from like the best way through, but everything in between, what's the point of it? At least everything in between in a linear kind of close quarters level. Like in Splinter Cell, you're not in one entrance and out the other entirely, because usually the environments are built up so that you are pretty much, once you're in there, you're in there, and then you're not out until you're fully out. And getting fully out isn't always the it's not as simple as MGS5's kind of like, you could get a car and drive out. Like, is that really Splinter Cell? Like, it could work, I guess, but I don't know. I'm just having a hard time processing this and understanding how it would work. And this is why it's difficult to be able to entirely say if this would be good or bad, because I just don't think it would work. And there's also the case of Splinter Cell's always had like a bit of a kind of a globe-trotting, like a kind of, identity, in the sense that you have all these different missions that take place across the entire world. And you kind of like, when you don't have multiple locations, if you're just pinned into this one place, that's going to be super boring. Like, what you're gonna, I guess you can, I just don't find that interesting, because like, what's the open world purpose for the stealth game? And why does the stealth game need to exist? What's the point? And this is the thing that I can't work out. We'll find out obviously eventually, but I also just find it kind of disappointing that Ubisoft is potentially choosing to go down this route, because a lot of that, you got Assassin's Creed, you got Far Cry, and I mean, there was Immortals. A lot of their games are either online live service focused, or they're open world focused. Ghost Recon Breakpoint is another one. Even a Ghost Recon, I'm pretty sure, didn't used to be open world, I think. So like, I was kind of hoping that they would use Splinter Cell as a smart choice, in the, like, oh, okay, the rest of our games are becoming open world. Splinter Cell historically hasn't been. Let's try and keep away from that. It doesn't mean we can't embrace certain things, but let's not make this into an open world game. Let's keep this limited to kind of what it was, but deliver it in a way so you would get like a nostalgic kind of, return of a franchise that people have wanted, myself included, for a long time, alongside design that actually fits the genre, the stealth genre, and making it a unique game in Ubisoft's portfolio, so that you have like a proper, it's separated from the rest. You're not looking at another open world game. And the problem with it being open world, it's like, are they going to chuck in other things? Are we going to have microtransactions? Are we going to have, live service elements? And it's not that they can't work, it's just the fact that, why create something which shares the same boring template? Are we going to have a battle pass in there? Like how far are they going to take this? And all of these questions are worrying, because it's like, at some level, the focus isn't to be making a Splinter Cell game, it's how can we use this IP to make money? And yes, that's a company's job, and that's kind of their, that's their main thing, and that's the same with any company, but you could say that about anything. Every good game we've received, well, that was about money, but there's a difference between making it only about money and making a good game, like a piece of art, that stands on its own, that stands as a good game that can be played over time. It can be gone back to. It's a single-player offline game. You can play it at any point. There's no restrictions. Maybe it has some DLC, which, expands on that, and that's totally fine. But it stands as its own thing, not as something that can be just butchered and tortured over time to become this, like, abomination where they, like, oh, we've got weapon skins in Splinter Cell, and we got loot boxes. I don't know if they'll do loot boxes because that's frowned upon there anyway. But like, it just disappoints me that this is what that they're doing. Why is this potentially the direction they're taking it? And they said they were worried. They said ages ago that they were worried about Splinter Cell. Like, I'm sure that they said that you know, when years ago when they were getting questions, oh, are you going to see Splinter Cell? They wanted to do right by it if they were going to do another one, and they weren't really sure if something would work. And sure, they might all think this is really cool. Who knows? It could come out and it's cool. But is it just we one map? Is Splinter Cell going to take place in some, like, I don't know, it's going to be New York or something? And is Sam Fisher going to return? Or are we going to have, like, a reboot? Of, like, there's so many questions. And I'm just like, why pick the open world approach? You know, why not diversify your lineup again, Ubisoft? And why not bring something that is cool for fans, that maybe embraces some? Because there's always, you know, it's the thing I always look at. There's one game that I always look at. I guess there's a few games, but one game that always comes to mind when I think about a series that modernizes itself without forgetting what it is, and it's Devil May Cry 5. That game is just, in fact, I think it's underrated. It doesn't even get much attention from like the mainstream to me, and it's like, but this game has come back after years of its mainline series coming back with a story that makes sense following its last game, the last entry in the series. It doesn't reboot it, but yet the story's clearly a focus, but like even more. Well, I'd say the story's more of a focus, but the visuals and the cinematic, I guess, production value have been upped, and it matches what you see in things like Uncharted and stuff like that. And it feels like the story quality and the characters and the writing is like up there with some of the other games, and maybe it doesn't have the same tone and, you know, a serious, you know, focus that, like, you know, at the end of the day, it's, you know, Devil May Cry has its own kind of, you know, quirks, and it's not fully serious all the time, so it's not doesn't meet those same standards, I guess, you know, or meet, you know, but generally, like, it still is Devil May Cry. Like, you can play Devil May Cry 5 and it still feels like that same game you played back in 2006, 2000, whenever DMC4 came out, you know, and even DMC3 on PS2. And I'm just like, why couldn't Ubisoft not do that? Why can Ubisoft not just bring a game back? Like, and it's not that I don't think they bring. I don't know if they bring many games back, but why can they not take Splinter Cell and go, right? This is a stealth game, and stealth games are inherently niche. I already had it in my head that they're not going to make a full-on stealth, like true stealth game, because of the fact that that doesn't appeal to a large enough audience. Hence why Blacklist has like the kind of multiple play styles, and you can play more an action-oriented sort of style and more of a stealth-oriented style. And I expected that thing to happen here, but I just look at something like MGS5, and I'm like, you know, what are we just going to follow in those footsteps? Are Ubisoft going to try and pull from all these different games and try and make this weird mashup of all this stuff? And I'm just like, is it going to work? I'm worried, because I'm just like, can we not, like, why does it need to come back as an open world? And you know, again, we don't know the full details of this. You know, I don't want to jump to conclusions, but it's difficult not to when Ubisoft have the rest of their games looking the way they do. And everyone, so many people had made jokes about, oh, Ubisoft are going to bring Splinter Cell back as an open world, and that seems what's going to happen, and it pisses me off. I'm like, why? Why? Why just give people what they said that was going to happen? And I hope people share their thoughts on this, or I hope that when this is revealed, that they genuinely have something good there. And I know devs aren't just trying to make stuff for the sake of money, because they also want to, you know, the developers themselves want to put in the passion and the care to make the thing good. You know, I don't think any developer wants to ship a game that's just total crap. You know, so it's not that I expect this game to be intentionally bad, but I just feel like it's going to be used as a vehicle to deliver this other crap that we just don't need any more of. You know, one thing that annoys me about a lot of games is battle passes. Like, so many games have to have a battle pass, and it's like, why does every game need to have its own battle pass? Why have battle passes become the way to monetize your seasonal game? Why does it need seasons? Like, you know, why can we not have innovation and something different? And why does every live game need to have these same, you know? And to be fair, I play Destiny. Like, Destiny's got those elements, but the thing I find about Destiny is it has its own problems, but something feels a bit better about Destiny's, like Fortnite, for example. I played Fortnite recently, and I'm actually impressed with it. You know, I didn't. It seemed like I mean, it seemed pretty fun. It's interesting that Chapter 3 stuff's cool. But then you get games like Call of Duty, and I don't know if FIFA's got it. Candy Crush has even got a battle pass, and it just comes across as like, why does every game need one of these? You know, and I'm getting off topic here, but yeah, my main point is that I just, and a lot of people I know are already gonna say, ah, of course, Ubisoft were gonna do this with Splinter Cell, you know, but it's ridiculous. Like, how isn't that bad that all the kind of people that either whether they're fans or not will say like, oh, we know Ubisoft's probably going to turn it into an open world game. It's pretty bad that that seems like what's going to happen. How? Why? That's what people were calling. People were saying it, and they weren't saying it as a prediction in like an exciting way. They're saying it in a negative way. They're like, that's all we expect from Ubisoft. This isn't good. I don't understand why this is where it seems to be heading. And I don't understand that this is why they're making these choices. Again, we don't know enough currently. So we still want to see how it's going to play out. But I would like the questions to be asked. Is it going to be Splinter Cell? Do the developers and Ubisoft as a publisher, do they believe that this Splinter Cell is a true Splinter Cell game? Do they feel like it makes sense to release this next? Is it a reboot? Are they bringing back Sam Fisher? What's the open world for? Are there going to be multiple locations? Is this objectively better than the other games? Is this just a vehicle to make it like their other games? Is this just there to solely make money? Because so far, the impression I get is that, you know, the first leak about the Hitman style levels made sense to me. I was like, you know what, I will see how that plays out, but I kind of expected something like it. But then hearing it's going to be an open world of sorts that might be like Halo Infinite, I'm just like, why? What purpose is the open world going to serve? For mindless shit that you can just do. Oh, I'm going to go and clear out this outpost now, and you do it. And oh, I found a rare pistol in there. Oh, this silencer's cool. Like, and what are they going to have a loot system in Splinter Cell now? It's just get out of here. Like, just stop it, seriously. I don't, you know, I'm jumping to conclusions. Like, I'm jumping to conclusions, to be fair. But you just know, if they're already going open world, it makes me think that they're just going to do it for the sake of having other stuff there. That's what we're going to get. We're going to get, you know, potentially that kind of typical Ubisoft game. And I don't want to be harsh. I don't want to be harsh, but it's like, I'm sorry, it's not really, you know, one thing we should, you know, I should have said this earlier. The game is in early development. I mean, I read it in the tweet earlier. It's in early development, so anything could change. But man, is this really what they think Splinter Cell should go to? Is this it? They want it to be an open world game, and you know, and is it gonna be one location? I just, you know, I get worried it's gonna be an open world filled with nothing alongside some story missions, and then there's some pointless crap you can do in the open world afterwards, and then they might have a loot system, and then, you know, and what's funny is Splinter Cell's had a multiplayer mode being in Spies versus Mercs, which is actually a really cool multiplayer mode, and something that I think could do well if it came back. Like, they could bring that back as a free to play game. You know, and it's kind of surprising. I wonder if any discussions are going on like that. But is this going to be packaged with the game? Are they going to release that as well? You know, I sometimes wish that, you know, when it comes to single player games, let's keep them single player games. Let's keep them grounded in a single player realm. Let's not try and make them a live service with events. And it's not that they can be bad, because some games, think Borderlands 3 seems to have done alright, but it works for Borderlands because Borderlands is inherently a loot-based shooter. So it kind of makes sense to have these like, oh, themed items come along. And it's not that themed items would be bad for Splinter Cell. I just like, what is the goal here? Are we gonna have an item shop in Splinter Cell now? It's shit like this that I'm just like, stop it. Can we just stop? Anyway, I'm gonna stop ranting. We'll see what Ubisoft do. We're probably not going to see this game. I think at the earliest maybe E3, but it might be maybe not even next year. But I hope that there's some good in this game, and I hope that what we get is decent. And I hope that if it happens to be open world, I hope it does satisfy myself and many other people. But I hope it makes sense for Splinter Cell, and I hope it's a good game. you know, because I just currently not feeling too confident about it, and I find it's a bit of a piss take. And you know what? If this doesn't do well, can we just port the old games to current gen? Just do that, and then we'll leave it, because you know, clearly people can't be. And by the way, I don't pretend to know everything about game development, so I'm not. As I said, we've still got to see what it's like, but you know, apologies if this has been a bit ranty, but you know. I think it's warranted because this feels a bit unfair. I don't say unfair, but it just feels doesn't feel right. It just feels like, come on now, we've had it for a bit too long. You don't need to turn every single one of your IPs into the same, you know, same kind of game. But yeah, I'm going to end it here because this is as per usual longer than I thought. Let me know what you think. If any Ubisoft dev happens to stumble upon this video, and who's working on the game, or any game to be fair. You know, I hope it's going well, and I apologize if I come across as I don't know, you know, what's the word, as uninformed. You know, hopefully it's a cool game. I think, as I said, I think devs put the time and passion into these games, and my frustration isn't in really with developers. It's one of those questions: is this the developers making these decisions, or is it the publisher? You know, is it just for money? Is it for the care of the game? Is it for the franchise? We don't know, you know, but it doesn't come across. It doesn't give a lot of confidence, is what I'm saying. And as a Splinter Cell fan who's basically gone on about Splinter Cell for nearly every year since like 2013, 2014, not looking too great at the moment. Not feeling too confident. I hope that will change. But yeah, hope you've enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. You can follow me on Twitter and whatever else. I'll include the links to the article and the tweet in the description. And yeah, hope you all have a nice day. Happy December to everyone. Merry Christmas, if this is my last video for Christmas. If this goes out before Christmas, hopefully it will. This is actually my second video that I've recorded that isn't out yet, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and I'll see you later. Ciao, ciao, ciao.